Welcome back to another lesson for the use of Highland Broadsword and Targe. Before we come to the next lesson with close quarter combat techniques, which we call enclose and command, we will talk a little bit about the shield as a punching tool. So, of course, when you come to closer quarters, there's always the opportunity to use the shield edge to punch your opponent into the face. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that you don't overuse this and that you don't use it too early. So it doesn't make any sense if you are in a fighting position and just trying to doing a cut with a sword and then making a punch like this would be a boxing match, because it isn't. It's still a sword fight. But when the opponent is close enough, so you can use it easy with a quick motion, like for example, you parry on an outside guard, your opponent encloses, maybe to do a bind or another enclosing and commanding technique, which we will discuss in the next lesson video. Then you might have the opportunity to just punch with the shield edge forward and hit his head, hit his face. And the same is of course true for the Basket-Hilt. It's like a big knuckle duster protecting your hand very well, but you can also use it to punch in close quarters into your opponent's face. Of course you can also use a pommel, but you can also use just the Basket-Hilt to punch forward. And there's the same rule. You only use it when you are close enough, or when your opponent encloses, and you might prevent a grappling situation with it. So therefore, the shield edge, the Targe edge, and also the Basket-Hilt are very good punching tools. But what you don't want to do is trying to do a boxing match with your tools. Okay? Unless you are close enough, or your opponent is close enough, and you're just going for an example, talk about an outside guard carry, and then you have his sword already binded, his shield is on the other side, so it's not a danger, and he has his sword, for example, too low, his hilt is too low, and then there is a free line to attack. You can just do a passing step forward and punch him with the shield edge into the face, but then of course you use a sword again. So don't overuse this idea of using the shield or the Basket-Hilt to punch. But when the opportunity is there, you can of course use it. When you are using a shield punch, make sure that you use the edge of your shield, because it's just the better tool to be used. Because it's a narrow edge, which is just transferring the power of your arm, of your punch, better into the target. Also, following the rules of unarmed combat, when you want to punch, also with the shield edge or the Basket-Hilt, you don't punch at the target or on a target, you punch through it. So, also judging the distance when your opponent is close enough, so a shield punch has effect. Of course, it's tougher than your fist, and you can do a lot of more damage with your shield edge or your metal Basket-Hilt than with your bare fist. But still, try to use it when you are close enough to not only punch at the target, but through the target. Okay, so you want to hit something behind the head of your opponent. Okay, so you're punching not at it, you're punching through. The best target to hit your opponent is obviously the face, his head, because it's most vulnerable, and it's of course on the higher line where you can easily do a shield edge punch forward or a Basket-Hilt punch forward. Are there other targets? Nah, not really. You might try to use it like some people do it with bigger Viking shields, using the shield edge to block the weapon, the shoulder of the weapon arm, kind of block it here, and then use your weapon again. You can use it, but this is, in my opinion, the only thing you might do possibly. Of course, if someone is stupid enough or desperate to try to do like a wrestling technique, and trying to make a double leg takedown or something like that, you can of course use your pommel to punch him in the neck, and you can of course use the shield edge to punch him in the neck. And even if you fall, I think he will be knocked out until you reach the ground. Okay, so wrestling is an important part of battlefield combat, but you should not confuse weapon fighting with a wrestling match. Still, this is the main tool, the sword with the sharp edge and the dangerous point. And things like punches with a shield edge or with a basket-hilt are secondary tools when the opportunity arises. Another thing is you don't punch with the flat of your targe, you punch with the edge. And as you can see, some of the historical targes had long pointy spikes. Some were shorter, some were longer. This one's pretty long. And of course, the main purpose of these spikes, in my opinion, was when you are parrying a sword cut with your shield, so the blade of your opponent cannot get away, it cannot slide down. So you have it trapped here and can do a better kind of a bite. But of course, it's very pointy, so if someone tries to enclose and to grapple, you can of course use it to poke your opponent with it. I mean, it's a very nasty pointy spike which will prevent most grappling situations very well, because no one is so stupid to run into such kind of a pointy spike. But if that you have something to really push and do some pressure and to stab your opponent. Another thing which was used in close quarters, of course, as many sources tell us, is the dirk. The dirk together in the targe hand. And there's a little bit of discussion about what was the way they used it. My personal opinion is they had different kinds of targes, so possibly they used it in different ways. We can assume if you have a targe handle which is relatively flat, like this one, you have no problem with grabbing your dirk, your dagger, and having it tight enough in your hand. And this is one way. The other way, which is discussed, is when you have a handle more like a bigger loop, then you would push your hand through it by just using this middle strap to demonstrate it, and then you have your hand free only for the dirk. Of course, if this happens, or if you use it this way, the targe should have a diameter big enough so your hand is not sticking out on the edge of the targe. So then your hand would be very vulnerable. The other question sometimes is, did they use it in this kind of dagger or ice pick grip, or did they maybe use it in a common sword or knife grip? My personal opinion is, of course, both is useful to some point, but if you want to have a powerful thrust in close quarters, you can just hold it with the handle together a lot tighter in the ice pick grip. Also, when you imagine you parry a cut and it comes too low and you miss it with your targe, you still have your dirk blade sticking out. So this could possibly stop it. Also, you have to be careful, because when you're holding it like this and a hard hit hits you here on the dirk, you might lose it from this side. However, it can be some little tool to prevent that the cut is sliding down and maybe hitting your leg. However, when you have it in a regular saber grip and you want to parry it, it's not like a basket-hilted parry dagger, so it might come between your shield edge and the blade and still cut your hand. So personally, I think it's not so useful. For the use in close quarters, the dagger grip or ice pick grip is also much more useful, because when we think of some kind of enclosing situation, and you parry, and then you step forward and you have your point sticking out and just thrusting. Instead of using your shield edge for a punch, you can use the dirk to step. The same rules apply to other defensive tools we use with the broadsword, like a buckler. And here the same rules are true, because when you parry, you don't want to use a wide punch. Also, your range with a buckler is a little bit longer, but you still can use it like a big knuckle duster to punch your opponent. And you can do it with a flat, but you can also do it with the edge. Both works. Of course, the same is true for the basket-hilted parry dagger, which was also used by the stage gladiators and prize fighters. Of course, obviously, you have a long pointy blade which you can use to step and thrust in close quarters, but for whatever reason it might be happening that you are close enough to use both basket hilts to punch, or you have to bind with your sword, and instead of thrusting your opponent, you punch him into the face just because he comes so close that maybe the blade won't work. But still, also here, the rule is that you don't want to overact a kind of use, because it's short. You can cut with your blade, and if your opponent comes closer, you can use the dagger blade to thrust forward and thrust him into the face. What you don't want to do is to like attacking and your opponent is running away and doing a full step forward and trying to thrust him with your dagger. That won't work most of the times, at least from our experiences.